Welcome to Healing Your Family Legacy, here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. Innovative, evidence-based recovery that helps to identify intergenerational trauma, allowing for freedom and embracement of the healing process. Today, episode 154, Ruby Franke. And now your host, Dr. Donna Bevan-Lee.
And this is Dr. Donna Bevan-Lee helping you heal your family legacy. I'm going to start off today. Well, first of all, I hope that you had a great holiday, that your New Year's went well, that your Christmas went well, and we're into the new year, which is also a leap year. But today I want to start out with a situation in Utah, my home state, that, grabbed my attention and speaks to what I do, what I've done for a living for the last 50 some odd years, and what I still talk about, seems like incessantly, but if you're listening, that's good. And I'm just going to read what the AP put out on this, because if I try and explain it, it's not as good. Anyway, so I'm going to read this from the AP. A Utah woman who gave online parenting advice on a popular YouTube channel was charged Friday with 6 felony counts of aggravated child abuse after 2 of her 6 children were found abused and malnourished. Ruby Franke is her name. Her online YouTube channel is now defunct. I'm not going to give her any more credit. She chronicled her family life and was arrested Wednesday night in the southern Utah city of Ivins. She was taken into custody at the home of Jody Hildebrandt, who owns a counseling business that she says teaches people to improve their lives by being honest, responsible, and humble. Hildebrandt was also arrested Wednesday and faces the same 6 abuse charges. So Frank and Hildebrandt were in this business together, and the prosecutors allege that Frank and Hildebrandt either caused or allowed someone to torture Frank's 12-year-old son and injure her 12-year-old daughter. Both children were starved and harmed emotionally. So I just want to say that, a couple things about this. I want to talk a little bit about it. It seems to have really gone crazy since the pandemic, where, I think everybody got online and started talking like I do. They had podcasts, and, YouTube channels, they had all this. And, my book came out right at the beginning of the pandemic. And I know that, people were saying, oh, you got to do this social media thing in order to sell your book. And this was huge, and it has stayed that way. Now, when someone is giving something as important as parenting advice, it should be somebody with some kind of education or credential, not just someone who has 6 kids or 1 kid. I mean, 2 neighbors getting together saying, oh, we're having trouble with, our 2-year-old sleeping, okay? And the other one says, well, I found out that if you let them have their binky at night, they sleep better. Okay, that is fine, okay? That is neighbor talking to neighbor and, or friends talking to friends, but you're not putting yourself out there as an expert in parenting. I am an expert in childhood trauma and the impact of that as a person becomes an adult. I am truly an expert. I have had more education than most people can ever dream of, and that I never thought I would have, okay? I'm not going to count it up again, but, it's in the 20 some odd years of education that, I went through internships, I went through practicums. I went into class, out of class. I wrote a book. I've written a dissertation. I mean, you have to do something in order to be an expert. Do you want to, have brain surgery by somebody who read about it online? Do you want that? Does that sound really safe to you? Or how about, we have become so overwhelmed with information that sometimes, and I think this is, I really feel this myself sometimes, that the information from people who actually know what they're talking about, who have been, who have had an education, who have experience, who, they know what they're saying. It's like it has gotten lost in the social media yelling about how to do this or how to do that, how to raise children. It's like that is something that really that I have really strong feelings about. And so I'm going to talk about that a little bit today. I don't need to pound it into the ground, but I will tell you this right now, that I am an expert in childhood trauma and the impact that it has on people for their whole life. This isn't something that people just get over. These 6 children are going to be in therapy, hopefully with people who have credentials, who have, obvious experience, who have license and certification to do this, that they will receive good treatment, and not from the neighbor Hildebrand, who, I'm putting this in air quote, has a counseling service to teach people how to be honest and humble. Okay? That is not therapy. It is not counseling. And I hope they get her for, falsifying whatever credential she thinks she has, because she was in it too. And these 6 children, that's a lot of people who grow up and impact other people's lives, impact people who are in the workplace with them, have children of their own. There's got to be a lot of healing for them. They are victims of really bad, horrible abuse. I started reading about some of the things that this woman did to her children. And it was, maybe it's just because I spent my life listening to this. And, I've experienced some secondary trauma from hearing about it for over and over and over again. And thankfully, I've had, therapists myself who have listened to me talk about the impact of that. And also I do other self-care things to, try and minimize that. But, you can read about it. Frank, one of the things she did with her oldest son was that when he, didn't close his door to his room, she closed the door and wouldn't let him go into his room for 7 months. He had to sleep on the floor, sleep on the couch, it's like he couldn't go in and get his clothes. He couldn't do anything. And then she starved him. He crawled out of the window of a neighbor's house, took his sister with him to a neighbor's house who let them in and called 911. That's how this terrible abuse was, stopped. Okay? And I hope these women see jail for a long time. Because when, their whole, this Frank woman and Hildebrand, because she was involved with it too, their whole theory seems to be out of this spare the rod, spoil the child idea, that if you don't beat children into submission or, beat them when you're trying to tell them something, that they will not get it And, what I have always said, which I will always say forever and ever, even for anybody who wants to listen to this podcast and say, well, that person is just, she lets the kids run the house. She doesn't care if kids get disciplined. I care about that deeply. What I will tell you is that what if your boss did that to you? What if your boss was trying to teach you something and brought out the rod or, yelled at you and demeaned you while you're trying to learn it? And you're an adult. You know things. You have resources. Okay? What do you think would happen there? You're sitting in you're at work doing whatever it is you're doing. Your boss wants to teach you something new. And so it comes in, or she comes in and demeans you, yells at you, tells you you're an idiot, you'll never get it, what's wrong with you, why didn't you know this before, and then slaps you around a little bit. Do you think that's going to help you learn anything? My guess is that the next thing that happens that you will either go to human resources or call the police. But we would never, ever think that was okay in the workplace. Ever. With adults who can take care of themselves, who can call the police. And so tell me this, just using your basic common sense, if you don't allow that as an adult, why do you allow that or think it's okay to do that to a child who is just trying to learn things? That's their job. They're here to learn what to do and how to do it. The adults in their lives, and I'm not just talking about parents, I'm talking about neighbors and teachers and scout leaders and priests and, everybody that has access to small children or adolescent children, any children at all, are assigned the responsibility and the stewardship to teach them what to do and how to do it. Not beat them, not demean them. You think, well, would I like that? Would I, as an adult, would I learn things if people did that to me? Yeah, you probably would. You'd probably learn how to get out of there. This happens to people who are in domestic violence situations. This is what domestic violence is when it's from one adult to another. And we're horrified by it. When we hear about somebody who's been a victim of domestic violence and they're adults, because child abuse is domestic violence as well, but I'm talking about adults now. It's like when we hear about this, we are just horrified by it. And so, Ruby Frank did it, got her neighbor to join in and start counseling service, quote unquote, and they have been giving parenting advice to hundreds of thousands of people. And I just want to tell you, don't do it that way. You will raise children whose little spirits are fractured. They'll be fractured by this. And they will spend much of the rest of their lives trying to heal from something that didn't need to happen to them. And if you have had children, or children, or you've seen children, or, you just know about them because they're all over the place, is that if a child falls down and lands on their arm, they might break it or they might not, but it's a no-brainer for them to heal. They're fast healers because they have a very rapid growth rate. Now, there's a surprise. You're born and you start having a really rapid growth rate, and you grow and you grow and you grow. And, most people don't reach all of their full adult growth. And I'm talking about physical, emotional, psychological, intellectual, intellectual growth can continue for sure. And so can emotional growth. But, our physical and our, brains and our sense of self is pretty much set by the time we're 25 years old. And most of that happens in the first 5 or 6 years of childhood. And then it grows upon itself. Okay, so you have a child who's completely dependent on the adults in their lives. They're dependent on all of those adults to teach them what to do and how to do it. And they're dependent on all of those adults in their lives to love them and understand that they can only act their age. They can't act, and when you see them act like adults, and I've seen kids act like adults, and everybody thinks that's so cool and so clever and so cute. Well, if they're doing it to put on a little show, that's one thing. But if they're doing it because that's the only way that they feel like they're going to get their needs met, that's another thing. It's called emotional abuse, and it's called, child, parentification of a child when the child's acting more like the adult than the adult. And that child will suffer. Their relationships will suffer because their primary relationship, that the person that they're really married to, is their parent, who they feel like, if they say anything, they'll be abandoned or neglected or, whatever. It's like you teach your children what to do and how to do it. Now, I want to say this is that children who are in charge of the family, not good. That's too much responsibility for a child. Children are children. They can only act their age. So if they're 6, they're going to make 6-year-old decisions. If they're 13, they're going to make 13-year-old decisions. If they're 17, they're going to make 17-year-old decisions. If they're 20, they're going to make 20-year-old decisions. They can't really make decisions based on facts, reasoning, and wisdom until they get old enough to do that. They just can't do it. And they only understand the world from their perspective. I had this wonderful experience where, I've talked about my grandchild. Well, I have 2 now. And the one is, a little over 3, and the other one is just a month old. And so we were there visiting and got to meet the new one, and he's just wonderful and adorable. And I love him so much. And I love the 3-year-old so much. I've known him longer and I know him better. But my son and his wife send videos of, the 2 kids, sometimes together, sometimes not. And they sent this wonderful video, and it's a perfect example of what I'm talking about, where children can only act their age. So, there was a lot of discussion about how's this 3-year-old going to deal with having this new baby in the family that takes away a lot of the time and attention and energy that he got all the time just because he was the only child. It's like his every desire to have time, attention, and energy with mom, dad, grandparents, whoever. It's like that was what he got. Now he has to share that. Okay. So we're helping him. It's like he knew that the baby was coming. He would go over to his mama's tummy and hug the tummy and say, "Oh, I know there's a baby in there and my little brother's in there." And he talks quite well, and he talks a lot. Anyway, so they had this video they sent where a 3-year-old is laying on the blanket with the baby, and the baby is like moving around and, making little noises once in a while. And the 3-year-old is talking to him and touching his face and patting him and everything. And he does that for a few seconds, really. It wasn't very long. And then he sits up and he says, I like to play with it. It's like, okay? Here's a new toy because I'm 3. It's like, I don't understand what human life is about. I don't understand what danger is about. I don't understand what this is about. And so I'm 3 and I get new toys and I get new experiences, and, the ones I like, I keep. The ones I don't like, they go away. And so this is just another toy. It's like my doll. He has a doll. He has a couple of dolls. Anyway, and he has some stuffed animals that he loves. Curious George, and his little stuffed cat that he adores. And, in his world, it's just another thing like that. It's a newer thing, okay? But it's a thing. And I was looking at that and I thought, 3 doesn't know about this. They have to grow into it. He's in a huge growth spurt right now, trying to determine that this thing is, actually a human being, and he'll learn that as he goes along. He knows that it's not leaving. He knows that when he's not playing with it, that, his mother takes good care of it and changes its diaper and all this. He doesn't relate to, that's what he went through. That's who he was. Now, his parents are great with him, and they are, pretty exhausted probably because, they're trying to deal with him, and he's so smart. He's so smart. He's figured out that saying he needs a drink of water or he needs to go to the bathroom or something doesn't cut it anymore once he's in bed. Now he says he has a question. And I have a question. And they go in and they find out the question is, can he have a drink of water? So, he's smart, but he's still just 3. So he thinks that he's going to, he's managed to give us all a little chuckle once in a while. But when I look at him and I see him and the baby too, I just love the little guy. It's like I look at them and I can't imagine, A, doing anything that will hurt them in any kind of way, and B, letting them be in charge of my life. It just can't happen. And so, I don't profess to say, well, children should always, have the final say, or, it's like, no, I'm just saying give the children a voice and help them learn how to use it, and part of that is doing it yourself. So if you want your child to be respectful to, say, their elders or to you, then you treat them with respect and you treat them with dignity. And you allow that they're human beings that are small and young and are growing and learning things all day long and all night long. And that you, as an adult, get to help them learn what to do and how to do it every day. All day. When you have them around, they are learning what to do and how to do it. And if you're in the room, they're watching you. Now, if they're being shut out of their room because they didn't close the door right, they'll think that's part of life. Now, fortunately, this boy, this 12-year-old, did crawl out of the window and run to the neighbor's house, which sounds like something out of a horror movie, okay? And got help. And his siblings got help. And they got taken away. And I hope that they're, in some kind of treatment or foster care where people actually know what they're doing and will love them and care for them. But, that's their childhood. And when they look back on it, they aren't going to look back and say, oh, remember that time that mom, did this or that to us? She's very abusive to them, and she's giving advice. So I want to tell you that raising a child is a job. It's one that, if you want to be a parent, is a lovely job. And if it's like how you love your child, then you'll be able to do that. You'll be able to raise that child or those children with love. And if you raise them with love, teach them what to do and how to do it. Don't hurt them. If you ever wonder, is this abuse or isn't abuse? Is this thing I'm doing, would I like it if someone did it to me? Or what do you think would happen to me if I did this to another adult, who, by the way, can leave and get help? What do you think? If I could say, yeah, I'd do that to my neighbor, or I would, I wouldn't mind, I would be okay if somebody did that to me, then okay, I think you're in the clear. But if you can't say that, you might want to reconsider how you are going to parent your child. Okay, they aren't in charge. They can only act their age. And, I'm a pretty simplistic person when it comes to helping people. I always say, if you wouldn't do this to your neighbor, don't do it to your kid. If you don't want this done to you, don't do it to your kid. It's so simple. Yes, being a parent is complicated. It can be very complicated sometimes. But don't overcomplicate it by saying, well, what if I was in a situation like that? Would I like it if somebody treated me that way? Like when I was, in college, when I was working on my master's degree and then my doctorate, while I was doing that, I was a full-blown adult dealing with other full-blown adults, trying to learn even more complicated things. Do I think that it would help me if somebody was standing there berating me and telling what an idiot I was? No. That would just make me feel like an idiot. That's true for children. They need nourishment physical, they need nourishment emotional, they need nourishment intellectually. And I would just keep talking about this. Because right when I think, okay, people have finally gotten that some of these people who are giving out advice are whack jobs. And maybe they'll look at who it is that's giving them advice, where they were trained, how they were trained. Are they trained? Are they licensed? Are they certified? Look them up, find out. Well, I'm going to end this by saying that this woman, Frank, and her friend Hildebrand, I know they'll go to jail, they'll go to prison for what they've done, but they'll get out someday. Please don't listen to them or anyone like them.
Thank you for listening to Healing Your Family Legacy here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. This channel is made possible because of listeners just like you. If you would like to support the channel with your tax-deductible contribution on an ongoing basis or through a one-time gift, head over to experienceofthesoul.com/support. Healing Your Family Legacy is copyright 2024, Dr. Donna Bevan-Lee, all rights reserved. Our theme music is composed by Dave Croft and used with permission. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is a production of 818 Studios.
Hey friends, Sean here, your Experience of the Soul producer. I want to take a moment to tell you about something truly exciting. The SoulWorks online community, created by your host, Cynthia Alice Anderson, and available on the Mighty Networks app. If you're looking for a place where you can explore your spiritual path, connect with others, and grow in a meaningful way, then this is for you. SoulWorks is so much more than an online community. It's a safe, inclusive space for spiritual exploration, self-discovery, and personal transformation. Inside the community, you'll find everything from uplifting spiritual studies to soul-centered growth practices, meditations, affirmations, and so much more. It's a space where you'll always be supported and never judged. The best part, membership is free. You'll have access to powerful resources, inspiring content, and a supportive group of like-minded people who are all on their own unique spiritual journeys. And if you're ready to dive deeper, there are premium options available to enhance your experience with a live Monday night talk series and extended, deeper meditations. If you're seeking a place to connect, grow, and nurture your soul, we would love to have you join us in the SoulWorks community and see where this journey can take you. Visit my.soulworkscommunity.com today.